The Celestial Guardian expansion for Pokemon Pocket is here, bringing with it 2 booster packs and 10 new EX Pokemon. Let's go ahead and dive on into taking a look at Pokemon Pocket's most powerful cards releasing in our latest expansion. We're going to kick things off with the Pokemon that's on my awesome jersey here, Decidui EX, 170 HP Stage 2 with 2 different 2 energy attacks. We have Pierce the Pain that deals 100 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon that already has damage on it. Noteworthy that you can crack bench Pokemon with this, as well as a Razor Leaf, which does 80 damage for 2. I've got Rare Candy up on the screen here alongside it because Rare Candy with these stage 2s is going to make them more aggressive than they've ever been before, and it's going to add a dynamic to these 2 energy attacking stage 2s where you have this solid attack when going first, i.e. you evolve into your stage 1 and attack with its 30 damage 1 energy attack, and then you evolve into Decidui and you can hit Pierce the Pain right away. But this is also going to be potent when going second alongside Rare Candy because you'll be able to attack with your basic when you attach your first energy, and then Rare Candy on your second turn into Decidui. And this Rowlet templating here is really noteworthy because Skill Dive deals 10 damage to any one of your opponent's Pokemon, which sets you up for Pierce the Pain to be able to follow it up the next turn. This means you'll be able to dive one of their bench Pokemon for 10 and then crack it for 100 right away, which means if this Decidui ends up being a metagame threat, it will likely be a card that makes things like Druddigon and hiding behind walls not be a profitable thing to do. I will say, I also think it's kind of curious that the Pierce the Pain attack here takes double colorless energy. It'll be interesting to see if perhaps Decidui ends up being a splashable Pokemon inside of other things simply for reaching past their active and hitting things in the backline. Our second EX here is Paciman EX, 130 HP with a somewhat limp Seismic Toss attack dealing 60 for 2, but the Pokemon ability here is really where its strength comes in. If this Pokemon is in the active spot and knocked out by an attack, you get to move all fighting energy from this to one of your bench Pokemon. So what this kind of allows you to do is set this up as your lead and start getting in some chip shot damage with your stalling Pokemon, and then when it eventually goes down, you get to transition all of the energy off of it to something in your backline. While this specifically is only moving fighting energy, it does not have to attach those energy to another fighting Pokemon, meaning you could be charging up something like an Arceus or even the upcoming Rayquaza promo that we're going to be getting, or any other colorless attacker in the backline for this to be working from. Our third EX today is a copy of Aloen Muk here, 160 HP Stage 1, whose Chemical Panic deals 80 damage and then afflicts a random status condition from among Sleep, Burn, Confused, Paralyzed, or Poison, with the asterisk that it won't double up on a condition your opponent's Pokemon already has. I think at surface level, I'd be kind of surprised if this one was competitive. It has 160 HP, which is kind of nice, but 3 energies for only guaranteed 80 damage with a sporadic effect seems a little bit on the weak side. I suppose Asleep or Paralyze give you a chance to brick your opponent's next turn, which you're about 40% to get. And maybe I talked myself into this card being okay, because Confused, Asleep, Paralyze are things that could disrupt your opponent's next attack, and you're 60% to get one of those. And Poisoned or Burn deal extra damage, so you're like dealing 90 or 100 with Poisoned or Burn, or you have a 60% chance to maybe have a guaranteed or 50% chance to brick their attack. So this one could go either way. I'll be interested to see. I wouldn't be surprised if it misses, but I feel like this one's tough to evaluate because of the variance involved in it. Next up, we have Wishy Washi EX, a 170 HP basic. This is a lot of hit points on a basic Pokemon, and its School Storm deals 30 plus 40 more for each Wishy Washi and Wishy Washi EX on your bench. So in theory, this is a basic Pokemon that's getting up to 150 damage for a 3 energy attack. However, in order to hit that breakpoint, you're going to need to draw every copy of these 2 cards from your deck. Now, the basic Wishy Washi here does help you fill your bench, but it only has 30 HP, and it's going to be pretty easy to knock out. The high retreat cost on this one as well, meaning it's like often going to be locked in when it's your lead active, I think probably makes it a little bit on the weak side. Perhaps if you're interested in a 170 HP stalling lead with its attack being a secondary, could be reasonable, but I'm a little skeptical on this one for sure. Next up, we have Incinor EX, and this has templating that I think is incredibly powerful alongside Rare Candy. So stage 2 with a 1 energy attack here deals 30 and then guaranteed burns your opponent's active Pokemon. Burn, for those that don't recall, deals 20 damage during the pass turn, and then the burn Pokemon flips a coin, and if heads, it recovers. So essentially, Fire Fang does a guaranteed 50 damage so long as you can inflict a status condition, and then it's a coin flip to deal 70 for 1 energy. And with Rare Candy, if you're going first, you can evolve into Incineroar EX when you attach your first energy, meaning this is going to get to crack for 50 for 1 right away. You combine this with a pretty solid follow-up attack, Scar Charge Smash, dealing 80 or kicking up to 140 if it already has damage marked on it, and both of the evolutions for this, Litten as well as Torcat here, mark damage on themselves, setting up for this Scar Charge Smash organically. Next up, we have Delmise, 140 HP with Anchor Shot, 3 energy, deals 80, and during your opponent's next turn, they can't retreat. I think this type of effect really depends on what the dynamic of the good decks in the meta game are. We've kind of seen a shift away from decks that like shifting their active Pokemon in and out in a post-Cyrus world, and I don't know that I expect that to necessarily change. So unless there's a deck that's playing a lot of low retreat cost things, I would expect Delmise is probably a little bit too expensive of an attack for the effect that you're getting that's not super desirable. Next up, we have Crabinable here that evolves from a basic fighting Pokemon with a colorless attack. This does 40 on the first hit, and then its follow-up attacks do 80. This is a bit worse than the Exeggutor EX that we've seen be good in Pokemon Pocket metagames in the past, just because the power of Exeggutor is the fact that dealing 80 on the first turn often stops things before they evolve. It does ramp up to a nice amount of damage, though. You deal 40 and then 80, getting 120 over 2 turns. So when you have first evolution advantage, this could be reasonable. It also has a ton of HP. 160 on a stage 1 is another one of these. So it feels like we are seeing a little bit more HP creep overall. As one of Pokemon Pocket's premier Starmie EX enjoyers, perhaps there's a really aggressively slanted water deck where you're playing Crabinable alongside Starmie as 2 things that hit early and often for low amounts of energy that could potentially be very powerful. Finally, just a quick review, the couple of EX Pokemons that were spoiled during the trailer launch. For those that haven't been keeping up on things, we have Aloan Raichu here as a new EX Pokemon. This evolves from a basic Pikachu, not an EX Pikachu, is something to call out. Its Psychic Attack does 30 more for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. So if they've got 3 on them, this is cracking for 150, which is a pretty solid breakpoint into a lot of things in the metagame, and notably clears things like Arceus and Giratina in one go if they're ready to attack. This is also a fully colorless attacker, meaning that you can charge it up with things like your Manaphy or your copy of Dialga as a potential payoff behind those cards. Finally, we have the pack faces, which both evolve from the Cosmium and the Cosmog. Cosmog here, having the teleport ability, works very well in tandem with Solgaleo here. Rising Road, once during your turn, you can, if this is in your bench, you can switch it in. So essentially, the effect on Solgaleo here means that you can always build this safely on your bench and then get to swap it in and hit for that Soul Breaker as soon as it comes together. This means that you can be building this Pokemon behind something like, say, a Snorlax, or maybe even like that Wishy Washi EX that we saw earlier, that is an incredibly high HP to tank hits for you, but has a prohibitive retreat cost. Well, Solgaleo here just completely mitigates that altogether. And Cosmog helps you teleport out back to the bench, so that way you're always building it up and not taking hits while you do so. Lunala EX is a really interesting design, 180 HP, with its Lunar Blast not doing a ton of damage, but the call out here being its Pokemon ability Psychic Connect lets you move all Psychic energy from one of your bench Psychics to your active Pokemon each turn. This is an incredibly powerful synergy with our metagame powerhouse Giratina from last season. Giratina gets to put an energy on itself every single turn, and Lunala now lets you move those psychic energy to something else. While Lunala can only move psychic energy from psychic Pokemon, it's worth calling out that it always moves it to your active, which can have any typing. This means, in theory, you can splash Lunala and Giratina into any deck that has a Pokemon that needs colorless energy to attack, and if you assemble these together, you can use that Giratina to battery it up. Lunala itself, only needing one psychic energy to attack, means you can use its Pokemon ability with Tina to allow it to attack as well, meaning you can splash this type of effect in non-psychic decks also. I appreciate everybody. I made it all the way through the end of our short review here. If you want to see these Pokemon in action, make sure you're subscribed to this channel, because I'm going to be posting a ton of deck highlights from the most interesting and seemingly powerful things that I play on my live stream over the course of the next week as we dig on into all of these cards. If you want to watch the successes along with the failures and some more organic content, be sure to stop by that live stream here on this YouTube channel, as well as twitch.tv/Jeff Hoagland to check out the action and leave me your suggestions for what we should be checking out. If you happen to be new here, consider subscribing to the channel. I post a ton of Pokemon Pocket content here every day of the week, and I'd love to see you back again sometime. I appreciate the folks that made it all the way through to the end, and I hope your next pack is an excellent one.